She is an extraordinary person. I met her some 8 years ago, and from the first moment I laid eyes on her, I knew she was the real deal. I was in awe of the load that she was able to carry. The constellation of her kids' needs far exceeds anything that one normally associates with normal parenting. She touched me to the core. Such strength, such courage, such dignity. I would watch her being out and having to deal with all kinds of so-called helping professionals. I saw how she was able to maintain in the worst possible circumstances when her spirit was on the line. She always managed to stay true to who she was. And the person who she was is the mother of her children, and she was going to do everything that she had to do to protect them and to make sure that their interests were met the best she could. And she continues to inspire to this day. Her home was filled with love and laughter and spirit, and when I would leave there, I'd always kind of rub up against her and saying, "Can I have a little of that, please?" She's inspiration to this day.
I worked in the paper machines. So I worked under the paper machines, on the paper machines, in the labor pool. So at the bottom of the feeding chain, in the paper lab, testing paper, and I had worked at the mill before. I had worked there when I went to college years ago back. I had worked there because my father worked there, and most people, if your father works in the mill, you can get jobs in the summer, etc., working. At certain points when I was working at the mill, I was living middle class, same as everyone else. And then once I was not working at the mill, then we were living in a more poverty level. My mother was with me. My mother was living with me because my father had passed away a few years before, and she was helping me with the 4 kids. And she died. When my mom died, then I wasn't able to keep my job going at the mill. It was 12-hour shifts, working in the paper machines. So I wasn't able to find childcare and keep the kids going and the job going. So I had to give up one of them. One of them had to go, so I had to give up the job at the mill in order to take care of my children. Well, Michelle was autistic with epilepsy. So she had autism and developed epilepsy later on when she was, I think, around 12. In the grade 8. She started having behavior. She went to school with the regular kids and loved school. People loved her. And then she started to exhibit a lot of strange behaviors when she was in grade 8, a lot of aggressive behaviors. And eventually I withdrew her completely from school. And then one day she fell down beside me and had a seizure for 4.5 minutes. So then that explained what was going on, why she was having difficulty. She was autistic, she was nonverbal. She did speak, like all nonverbal people speak, but until you know their language. But she used pictures to point to for what she wanted, how she felt. And she was a runner. She would leave the house and not come back if she had something in her mind. So I had a house that was modified. I had locks on the doors. She would sometimes like to hang on curtains. So my father built gates so that Michelle couldn't get over the gates to get to the curtains. My parents helped me a lot, but she was hyperactive, as was my son. My son has ADHD, and he was very hyperactive. Actually, the psychiatrist that came to Red Rock through ISNIC said he was the most hyperkinetic child he'd ever met in his whole life. And Sean climbed over his desk, over him, under the desk, when he said he'd have to wait to interview him when he could sit still a little more because he couldn't do it. So we were a busy house. I would have preferred to work, so that didn't feel good, but I was I didn't even care anymore. Like I think, didn't care. I was busy with 4 kids. I was working around the clock. I didn't really feel the need to explain anything. So I kind of didn't care anymore about conventional standards that people, you know, what the norm was. I was way out of the norm, you know, so I didn't even think in that way anymore. It was survival, pretty much. It was hard. There was a few years, it was really, really difficult. It was hard for me to, the money's not there, it's hard to, we gave up our car, we had to, you know, give up the vehicle because I couldn't afford it, and it's pretty much hand to mouth, and you got to be thinking about how you're going to survive and figuring out how to survive. So it puts you at that level there, where you're at the very basic of trying to just survive. I hated it. Like I hated it like poison. Like the being in Ontario Works and having to answer, you know, like kind of begging for whatever you're going to get, given the least amount that you can possibly survive on, and then being grilled about what you're doing with it, not enough to survive on. So it's embarrassing, it's shaming to be, like if you ever have to go down to the office, when you had to go down to the Ontario Works office and stand in line, and it's humiliating. I think it's built to humiliate people. I think that's the purpose of it. And there's a lack of respect given to people, you know, who are dealing with people. There's an assuming air there that you're going to be hostile or out of control. You get all that, you know, that kind of feeling, and it's not very people friendly at all. So it's not a nice system to be on. It's not anything I ever would have bragged about or brought up in conversation. You know, it's something you want to avoid.
It's demeaning.
It's demeaning, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's made to be that way. There's a method to the madness.
In what way?
That the worse they treat you, then you'll get off, because there's this fabulous job waiting for you, and if you just go work, you won't have to come here and be abused. So that's the whole philosophy, and they send you, you know, sending you letters, like cutting people off, which, you know, is hilarious. Like the, you know, for the least little thing, that's another way of badgering you, you know. So it's a game. Well, Michelle became ill from that point, probably when she first developed epilepsy and when she started to have seizures. She really never regained her full health, because she had been physically just fabulous, like could climb. The higher she went up, the happier she was. Could run away faster than anybody. You know, but after the epilepsy, she lost a lot of her ability, and started having more issues and stuff. When she actually died, I've been bringing her back to the hospital many times, asking for help, saying that there was something wrong, and having people look at her and saying, well, you know, try this or that or the other thing. But when Michelle did actually pass away, she did at home. She died at home. So she was alive at night, tucked into bed, and then in the morning when I went to get her, I found her dead. And her brother Sean, so Sean's the baby, he was home with me. And I had to send him into a room, and then it went from there. And this affected not only myself, I mean, which, of course, but it was the children. Melissa, who is Michelle's twin, watched her whole life. Melissa wanted to know where Michelle was at all times. You know, is she in the house or where is she? So, and they had lost their grandmother before that, who was like a mother to them, and their grandfather. So the people that they really counted on, they went through at a young age a lot of loss. And Michelle, you know, blew it out of the water. So it was horrendous for all three of them, for myself. You know, so it was as horrifying as anything can ever be. But, you know, at the same time, I knew I had these three little people looking at me. So there's not a lot of time. You can't fall apart. You keep going, because then you've got to figure out how do we continue to eat. Because Michelle was at home, because she had the needs she had. She wasn't going to school a lot that last year of her life because she was struggling too much. So I was getting a certain amount of money because she was at home with special needs or whatever. So from the minute Michelle passed away, half of our income disappeared. So not only did we have the death and the loss and the grief, then we also were back into how do we survive. Now, with half of an income, our bills aren't any different, but half our income's gone. So there's no time to really fall apart.
Hope. Hope. I mean, every life's lesson, there's something happened in Patty's life that she was able to bring it to life for me, or view my life with meaning. But mostly it's her sense of humor and how she was able to face, people always say, like, how do you do, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she does it. Well, she does it because she has to do it. That's how people do it. They, plug their nose, grit their teeth, and put one foot in front of the other, and just keep looking that way and going forward. And that's why she's such an inspiration to me. Never looked back. Always looked ahead, because that's where the future was, and that's where her kids' lives lay.
It's very simple, like treat people with kindness. That's always what I remembered. It's the person who treats you with dignity, with respect, and even if you have to be given, it's the way you give. You know, you realize that sometimes it's a privilege to give. Like, that's the way I look at giving now. I was given things by people, and I must say I was treated by some wonderful people. Like we had the principal in Red Rock, and his family. They were beautiful, beautiful people to us. You know, Fiona, for the autism people, like, but they treated us with kindness and with respect. And you can take that kind of giving. You would still prefer you didn't have to, but you appreciate that. But when you're given with like the turkey raffle at the arena, or the food banks where they make people line up and they make a spectacle of standing outside this ugly old building, walking through to get, making sure they don't take more than they have a right to. So it's kind of like, like really, like, don't do that. That's not giving. I don't know what that is, but, So that would be my most important thing is, if a person's going to be on Ontario Works anyways, why humiliate them along the way? Yeah, I think, you certainly are either going to get tougher or you're going to fall apart. You're either going to survive or you're not. And then your children go into care, or, and that's always a great fear, I think, that you're going to lose your kids, you're going to lose. There's a terror that keeps you strong when you're when your back's right to the wall. That you're going to have to be, or you lose the most important things to you. So, yeah.